And now on Tucson Business Radio, let's find out how to be healthy, wealthy, and wise with your host, Karen Fisher.
Good afternoon, and welcome to today's edition of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. We are broadcasting live from the Tucson Business Radio X, which is located right in the Tucson Business X studio, but it is within Stuart Title's offices, the main corporate offices. It's a fabulous studio. I have a very, very amazing and special guest who has become a friend over the past year that you are going to just love. And I want to introduce Dr. Carol Soloway. Welcome.
How do you do? Hello.
I'm so happy that you're here. So we've got quite a bit of information, and you are a multifaceted person. You have done so many things, but I'll give you just a couple of the tips as far as with my readers. She's a best-selling author. She has 2 books right now that are out, and she's got a children's book coming out. She's also a doctor of chiropractic medicine, as well as a certified medical examiner. So lots of stories. So let's just get right into some of the things I do. So your story, everybody has a story, but your journey is one of the most incredible, and yet at the beginning, some of it rather heartbreaking of what's happened that led you to this career path. And then as far as being an author and some of the other information. So tell us a little bit, because I know for a fact that you just had it was the easiest time for you. Everything was perfect. You didn't have it. And here you are, a doctor of chiropractic medicine, and it was just all handed to you overnight.
Oh, where is that plate? I'm looking for it. You know, I always say this marriage is really easy. All you have to do is cook like Julia Childs, have the patience of Mother Teresa with your children, and be a sex goddess at night. It is easy.
Oh, my.
But then it didn't work. So we got a divorce.
You were married for how long?
I was married for 15 years. I had to think about that because it's like
it's another life ago.
Somebody else. And we were married for 15 years. We just moved to California. I knew no one.
Where did you move from?
New York.
Oh, okay. All right. East Coast, West Coast.
East Coast, West Coast, and didn't know anyone. And I was finishing chiropractic school. It was like a dagger or whatever, not to be over dramatic.
Outside of the road, they're calling us. So
they're calling us, but I didn't do it, honestly. Yes. I thought about it, but I didn't. But so we had gotten a divorce, but it was going to be okay because the children were going to be taken care of. In other words, he said, we'll put everything into child custody. So that was going to be all right, even though I was in shock. I did consult an attorney, but the attorney wanted $2,000, and there was nothing. I didn't even have anything in my name. Oh. No, that's not true. I had a $10,000 student loan. That was all mine.
Oh, great. Yeah, okay. So you had debt.
I had that. And so I was devastated. But okay, I put, as long as the children were taken care of. And then the children came home and told me they were going to live with their father.
Oh.
Yeah. So they left.
And how many children? And 3. How old were they at the time?
3, and they all went. And 13, 11, and 5.
Oh, wow.
So they left, and I had this chiropractic degree almost. So I decided I'd open a practice. And we've talked about women in business, right? And I tried to get a student loan. Not a student loan. No, I had the student loan.
Yeah, you had the debt.
I tried to get a loan for my business. 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into the bank where I was, Mrs. Doctor, and thought they'd give me a loan. They laughed. So, and you would be I mean, you know about women getting loans even today, I would assume.
Well, and for our listeners, one of the things that people may not realize, because it just seems so foreign right now, but it really wasn't all that long ago. It was as recent as just the 1970s, where a woman could not get a home loan, or you could not use her income for qualifying for a home loan unless she had a certificate of sterilization or a doctor's note, literally a doctor's note.
Wow.
And I mean, you think about that, it today, people can't even comprehend that.
Well, I'll tell you something about the late 70s. I decided I was going to go to chiropractic. I was going to go to physical therapy school.
Oh, okay.
And I got accepted at Columbia University, which is
very prestigious.
Yes. And I decided, you know what, that was too far because we were living on the island. So I decided I'd apply to NYU, which was my alma mater. The woman at the interview, this was in the late 70s, told me, I will not accept you because you have 3 children and you can't be serious.
Oh, and this is a woman herself saying it. Okay. All right. Well, it's interesting in our early careers, because I've been in business. I started in 1983 after going to school, kind of a random path, but my field of study was in biomedical engineering. I'm a numbers geek through and through. However, instead of going into that field, I actually ended up in the real estate industry because at that time I was just shy of finishing my degree. And there's a story, there's a wrong turn, right turn, where what I thought was going to be the most absolute devastating news ever turned out to be something that actually probably saved my life. And this is what happened. So my husband and I put ourselves through school. We were doing the student loan, starving grant, all of that stuff at that time. And so this is in 1982. You would get your student loan award and everything like that, like in May. That would be so you would know what you would have. And then, but your semester would start in August. Well, we got married in June. And so come August, I went to tell, at the time it was ASU. I did go to the U of A and then ASU as well, but was at ASU at the time. And I went and told them that we had got married. And I was like, oh, 2 can live as cheaply as 1. And they cut our student loan in half. And then we didn't even get that half until December. And so literally my husband and I looked at each other and it's like, we can't pay our bills. And so we made a deal. Whoever got a full-time job first, they'd quit school. And so I ended up actually accepting a job offer. I didn't even know what this meant, but it was $600 a month, draw against commission. I didn't even know what draw against commission meant, but I knew that $600 would pay for my schooling, right? I mean, for our bills. Well, but then I was no longer working in my part-time job, which was drawing blood for the lab. Well, the reason it ended up, in hindsight, literally saving my life. I mean, I was devastated. This was my career. I was going to be a research scientist. I was working with this. The reason it saved my life is because I was a phlebotomist drawing blood for the lab. But back in the 80s, the early 80s, we didn't use gloves unless you used HypoCleanse. You washed your hands all the time, but you only used gloves if somebody had hepatitis. Well, the AIDS virus was out, but for whatever reason, they did not let the medical community know about this.
Wow.
And so there were people that were phlebotomists that did what I did, and they contracted AIDS and passed away. It was literally years before I was allowed to donate blood.
Isn't that amazing how the wrong turn turns out?
And it's like, oh my God, in hindsight. But the skills that I learned as far as with school and things like that, and I want to talk about, what the chiropractic has done as far as how that laid some of the foundation for the other things for you. But when you think about that, what was the worst? Now, the good news is like I said, I'm still a numbers geek, still love it, still helping people, right? But it's just in a different venue, if you will. So as a mortgage banker, I mean, I see everything. So. But anyhow, back to as far as you were going to be, your alma mater said, no, they're not going to take you because of 3 small children, and you couldn't be serious.
I was serious.
Yes, but, ironically, your husband had 3 small children too, and other men had 3 small children too, maybe, or more, and yet that was okay because...
Oh yeah, he went to medical school in Guadalajara, Mexico, and we had 2 little ones. We moved all the way down there and set up house, and I was doing some tutoring because I was an English teacher before all
okay.
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
And I was an English teacher, so I did a lot of tutoring, and we made it work, and they didn't ever ask
how he was going to take care of the children.
No, not even an issue.
Isn't that interesting? So anyhow, segue, you did go to chiropractic school. Where did you end up going to chiropractic school?
There was a chiropractic college maybe 10 minutes from our house.
Okay.
And that looked a lot better than going to Columbia on subways and leaving the children. So the children did factor into my decision. And I went to the chiropractic school with 3 kids and at home and made it through chiropractic school.
Fantastic. So now fast forward, you're in California and you're going to open up your practice because now you're divorcee at this time.
Oh, that sounds so official.
Official, yes.
It didn't seem very impressive, but yes.
So then what happened when
there was no way I could get a loan. No way. So what I did was I had gotten the house in the divorce. It was a mortgaged house, but that was the thing I signed. In other words, he had his practice and all of our funds, and I agreed to take the house as well as that child custody, child support. Thank you very much. Not custody, because I didn't have that. So that was what I agreed on. I sold the house and moved into an apartment, and I had enough for 4 months. Period.
Wow.
Period. That was it. 4 months. I had to make it. And you know how many businesses, 40% fail in the first year?
Yeah.
I had 4 months.
You had 4 months. Okay. But you also had grit and determination.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that trumped.
That trumped everything.
Everything.
Okay.
And I decided I was going to make it because there was no plan B.
No plan B.
I couldn't.
When this comes up with businesses a lot, this plan B.
Yes.
And it's interesting to me to watch when somebody has made a decision that they are going to do something and they don't have a plan B. It seems to me that they succeed more often than not because they'll just figure out a way. Whereas, and I'm not saying don't do your research and don't, you've got to be wise and a good steward with your money and your time. But when I hear somebody, and I can just hear it echoing, when I hear them say, well, if I'm not a success in business or if my business doesn't make it, then I always have this to fall back on, whatever this is. And it's usually a job, which jokingly, one of our mutual mentors, which is Sandra Yancey for eWomen Network, she says a job is a nickname for just over broke. So there you go.
Well, I knew I could always become a teacher or work for somebody else. So to that, but I had the student loans that were coming due. So to that end, yes, I knew that I could work for somebody else, but that was
not at the forefront of your mind at all. No.
That would have been failure. I would have done it. I would have done anything I had to do, but no, there was no way. So I made it happen by networking my way. Which is where we met. Yeah.
So let's talk about as far as the practice and networking, because this is good for our listeners, which are primarily business owners and entrepreneurs and other business people, but they're usually responsible for their results. They're not just being told what to do. That's who our listener is. Tell me about the networking and how that showed up for you.
I couldn't advertise. There was no budget for advertising. I mean, I planned out the next 4 months to the penny almost, but I could go to networking meetings. So there were even evenings where I slept in the office because I came back from a late networking meeting and had another one at 6:30 in the morning. And at networking meetings, there was no way I could buy people's services or goods because that just wasn't. So what I did was I started connecting people, like a realtor with a mortgage broker, and that's what your listeners should really. Oh, I'm looking at the sign. It says "Ready to Connect." Be my guest.
Great.
Connecting is really. Keith Ferrazzi says the most important business commodity are your connections.
Absolutely.
And I mean that was something that, if I can connect somebody to their power partner. Can you imagine how much better that is than buying their lipstick or their
anything,
anything that they're selling? And I'm not saying that they're selling lipstick because there were higher ticket items, and I could have afforded the lipstick. But that is a skill that I really found much more valuable than money.
And, as you're saying that, you think about that. I think that's true in all areas of life because you'll hear it say sometimes said a little bit condescendingly, "Oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know." Well, that should not be a negative in anything that we're doing. It should be a positive. It's like who you know, and then the connector. When you say you need to meet so and so and so and so and so and so, people. It's interesting because my daughter says, "Mom, you collect people." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You will remember the story about every bit about them." And then I'm always thinking about who I'm going to connect with. And interestingly, I think that that's just great business and personal karma.
Well, let me interrupt you and talk about your personal karma. You, after maybe, 6 months when I ran into you, you remembered everything.
Oh,
and that's an important thing for your listeners to take away. If you can be an attentive listener, that is so important, and people value that.
When I feel listened to, when somebody remembers me, just maybe something about me, whatever that conversation is, you're 100% correct because you do feel, people do have that desire. It's like an innate human desire to be connected. And that can be positive or it can be negative. Some of our police officers will tell us that's the attraction of gangs.
Right.
Yeah, they want to be connected. They want to be a part of something.
Recognize.
And how do you matter? And when we have this whole generation, it's not just generational. This whole trend in society where technology has taken over some of our interpersonal connections. Are you just responding to somebody on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram and give them a heart? We were at, again, an eWomen network. It was the Platinum Summit. And Brianna Day was speaking specifically about the appropriateness of social media. And she says, if you could just remember one thing, treat your social media as if you met that person on the street. This is brilliant advice. So if you saw somebody on the street and they told you, I just had a baby, would you just sit there and give them a thumbs up on the street? Think about this. Thumbs up or I heart you. Like, no, she says that's ridiculous. So if you're limited for time, maybe you do a thumbs up and a heart, but make sure you go back and you post something or you say something. And she says, just be conversational as if you just saw them on the street. When somebody says, I just had a baby or I'm expecting a baby, what would you naturally say? You'd naturally say, congratulations. I am so excited for you. You're going to make awesome parents. call me if you need a babysitter. That's what I would say, because I love kids, but don't have grandkids yet, but that's in the works.
I have 12 who want.
Oh, yeah, I'll borrow some. How's that? Yeah, with our daughter.
As a matter of fact, one's staying in our house right now, that he's 23.
Oh, my gosh, fantastic. So then fast forward, your chiropractic business actually thrived.
Yes, this is going in my head. You said jobs just over broke. I have to go back to that. Even when you have a fabulous job, because I did have a fabulous job at State Comp Insurance Fund. I mean, we were making so much an hour; it was great. And they came in one day and decided our policy has changed. We're firing all of you, 50 chiropractors and medical doctors across the state. So even when you have a job that is lucrative, you're still not always in control.
Oh, you're definitely not in control.
I just had to go back to that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
So that was one of your large clients that you had? Or
no, I was in-house.
You were in-house. Okay, so that was after you'd opened private practice? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I jumped ahead, but that was my forever job.
Okay.
No, I was going to work there until carted me out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But so you don't have the security when it's not yours, really.
Yes, yeah.
But to go back, I'm sorry.
No. We're fine. So just in terms of as far as with your practice and a little bit more of what's happened, and then how did you? So fast forward, you had your private practice, and then you accepted a job? Is that what happened?
No. What I'm saying is, this was years and years later.
Okay.
I just wanted to get back to the jobs before I forgot.
Make sure that they're,
to make sure that the listeners were aware of that. It's not only just over broke, there's also a security factor.
Yes, yeah.
And not saying that even if you have your own business, there's 100% security, but still, before you decide to close, you're going to talk to yourself.
Yes, at least, yeah.
So, no, I started my practice, and it was growing almost, I'm not going to say organically because that makes it sound too easy, but it started growing really by, I have to say, over-delivering. I was there for the patients almost. I even remember Christmas Eve where I was there with a police officer.
Oh.
And he was on duty and I was on duty because I didn't have the children. So this was my home almost.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It became my home, really. And it built up to a wonderful level, and then I started doing these qualified medical examinations and became certified and appointed as a state qualified medical examiner.
So explain to our listeners exactly what a qualified medical examiner does.
First of all, there are no dead people.
No dead people.
No
okay,
dead
that's
people.
Good. Okay.
They're all very much alive. And I examine the patients and then decide what their disability should be. In other words, I'm not saying I don't do the financial calculation for their settlement, but it is based on my report.
Got it. I'm sorry. So if somebody's been, let's say they were injured in an accident and they've lost the use of their arms, they might not be able to have done their previous job, that type of thing.
Yes. And in California, I only do musculoskeletal.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Neck, back, etc., and arms, legs. I only do that part of the rating.
Got it.
And
okay.
defer the rest. But in California, we have the AMA guides, American Medical Association guides, and that's what we use to calibrate.
Got it. Okay.
How much. How like a disabled they are.
A percentage of disability.
Exactly.
So, one of the things that, because I do a lot of VA loans,
right.
With the Veterans Administration, they have probably their own team that does their qualified medical exams, and they'll give a disability rating is what happens. So somebody could look totally normal, but you don't know what's actually happened, and sometimes. There's sometimes some things, and so if a veteran is rated as 10% or greater disabled from a service-connected disability, I'll be specific about that, it has to be service-connected, then they are exempt from the VA funding fee. And that actually saves a veteran thousands of dollars in terms of purchasing or refinancing a home. So if you're exempt.
So, it is the same thing. And I only examine people who've been in work-related injuries.
Same type of thing. So
same thing.
Veteran service connected, you're doing work-related injuries. There's no other way of saying it. So
right.
Yeah.
And there was something to do with the VA that I had done in Long Beach for a very short period of time. But yeah, they have their raters also and their evaluators.
Interesting. So how long, as far as the qualified medical examiner, how long have you been doing that? What was that length of time?
Oh, long time. I graduated from chiropractic school in 1983, and I started that fairly soon after. I think you have to be in practice for 5 years before you can even sit for the qualified medical examiner's exam.
Like a board exam that they do, yeah. Okay, very interesting.
And I started doing that. And then I was invited to go in-house at State Compensation Insurance Fund.
Okay.
And I was doing peer reviews, which means I would call another chiropractor and talk to him about his treatment.
Got it. Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
And I did that. And I took a job with a company as a qualified medical examiner when my son wanted to go to Brandeis, and my practice would not support that. So I was working there 1 day a week and my practice the rest.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, okay. So fast forward, you're still working, but you're having a lot of fun traveling and speaking all over, and you are actually, and so this makes even more sense as far as with your English background, as far as the books that you've written. And so let's talk about the first book, which is became a bestseller, which is Sex Happens. And I know people are like, say, what? Tell me more. So
tell me more, right?
Yes.
Sex Happens. Tell me more. That novel is about a woman who loses custody of her children, but it's not my story. The sex is great. No, it's not. No, I'm not complaining if my husband's listening. The story is about a woman who does lose custody, but she goes through a court battle, a custody battle. And I researched that. I was at the courthouse watching cases. I spoke to judges. I spoke to attorneys. Matter of fact, the other night I even played tennis with one of the attorneys I had consulted for this book. And I took courses, writing courses, even though I was an English teacher. I even got accepted to Squaw Valley, where there was Amy Tan and Mark Childress. And I just immersed myself in my spare time from midnight to 2.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah. And I started
So you spend a
writing.
lot of time watching television that's mindless.
Right. No, I don't even. As a matter of fact, last trip, we couldn't even figure out how to work the TV in the RV.
I love it, yeah.
But I just decided like there was no plan B. I was going to write a novel. And it was going to be cathartic, which it was. And then after I wrote this book, excuse me, a man walked into my office. I had a chiropractic practice, of course, at the time. And his name was the same name as my first main character.
Oh.
No, it gets worse. He looked exactly like my main character, black hair, and he wore a watch that I thought I made up, Rolex Presidential Series. I never even heard of it. And he was married, and he proceeded to get a divorce and marry someone with the same first name as my main first letter.
You're kidding
no, it
me.
gets worse.
Oh.
And then he was into insurance fraud, which is in my book. He did get into cocaine, which is in my book.
Oh, boy.
And then he tried to hire a hit person for me.
For you?
Which is in my book, yeah.
Against you as a doctor, because he thought you were writing about him?
No, because he bought my practice and didn't want to pay me.
Wow.
So he wanted to have a police officer for $5,000 take me out of my car, drive me to Compton, and leave me there.
Good grief. Oh my gosh. That piece I didn't know. So,
well, in the book, there is something does happen to the main character, sort of like that. But this was after I wrote it.
Wow. So it makes you almost as if you had manifested that person and they showed up in your life. I mean, literally, almost, right? You know, it just was, that's unbelievably canny. So I do want to just remind our listeners that you are listening to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise on Tucson Business Radio X. I'm going to ask our wonderful producer, we have an amazing candle, but it's providing a little bit of smoke in here. If we can, yeah, because otherwise I'm going to start joking too. So sorry about that. Excuse me. So I am Karen Fisher, and I am a senior loan officer with Summit Funding. The reason I started hosting this radio show, I've actually done radio on and off for about 20 years. But the reason I started hosting my own show, which is podcasted, was because the reality is, just like you within the medical, being the qualified medical exam, I see everything. Like I literally see everything. And as a loan officer, I ask all the questions that your mother told you weren't allowed to ask, such as, what's in your bank account? How much do you make? What's your date of birth? And oh, by the way, you've got to prove it to me. And oh, by the way, you've got to prove it to me typically more than once. And so I started noticing that there were a lot of things that were happening within the world, that being that connector, I was forever connecting people to. Like I remember one client, I met her and I'm like looking at her situation. I'm like, you don't need a loan. You need a job. And ended up getting her a job. That's the connector piece. So back to, and I'm just going to get I got a little lozenge here. So anyhow, so back to what we do. I'm available for people who want to find out as far as some information, as far as for finding out about home loans or anything that they might want to do. That is super fantastic. So, and then Carol, let's talk about as far as your next thing, because you're on a book tour right now. So you've written your second book that's gotten published called Gracie's Gone. Tell us about, well, first finish up a little bit more about Sex Happens.
Finish up a little more about sex.
Yes.
Sex Happens did become a bestseller, and I went across the country speaking about a little bit about my story. And there were so many women, and also after the book was published, people were calling me, and that was when people called and didn't text, and only, and telling me how it was. Even a woman from London called me, and that she was going through something similar, and they felt even if it wasn't a loss of a custody, still a divorce, and they felt inspired, and that was really so wonderful to hear these women telling me that well, actually a man did tell me that was the only book he read since high school. I think it was the title, but to hear these women tell me that this book inspired them was so gratifying and so wonderful. So I decided, well, I'm going to write another book. But when I published it, when I hit the button to publish, I said to my husband, promise me we'll move out of town. Promise me we'll go someplace where no one knows me if this is a bust. And that didn't happen.
Well, and then fast forward, your husband, that's the one that you divorced, he was your starter husband. and now you have the love of your life that you spend a lot of time on the road with now.
Oh, yes. We work together, play tennis together. Yeah. It's all worth the journey.
Oh, and that is and that's another just key. We've got lots of golden nuggets here, but something being worth the journey, I think that is huge. Like what, it's interesting to me to hear. I'm a big collector of quotes, But I like the idea that as far as the journey, like take pleasure in the journey, not the destination. And so many times, and I'm not saying not to be goal oriented. It's just perfectly fine to have goals, but don't lose track of yourself or what it's going to take to get there. And then also help others to shine. This is one thing that you do very, very well, Carol. Part of that connector piece of it is you help other people to shine. And I will have to find out who is the one that said this quote. But the more, if you look at a dark sky, nobody ever said, there's too many stars.
That's true.
There's enough for everybody. And if we can lift people up and the more the merrier. One of the things that's true from a financial standpoint, the money piece of it, we live in the United States. It is not an infinite. It's not a finite pie. You can grow. You can make something out of nothing. Think about what we have the ability to do, to make something out of nothing. You've taken words and you put it on paper and it becomes a best-selling book. That is making, something that was in your head and turning it into something that is a tangible product. There's not a limit.
Well, and also, using the past, like, what do I say? If you like a quote, you can be a victim of your history, or you can be the victor of a new story.
Oh, I like that.
And that's what has happened with that old story.
Yeah, that old story and that tape and everything that's going around, and how do you take that as a stepping stone versus a complete wall or roadblock?
Right. I could have just crumpled I did crumple to the floor if I am being candid, but I could have stayed there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of people that, and it is a choice. And I'm not saying that it's easy. And I'm not saying that sometimes you don't need to get professional help, but it's a choice whether you're going to be a victim, you said, or a victor. That is a choice, because you can take everything away from you, but what you can't take away is your mind. You cannot. The ability to make those decisions. Viktor Frankl talked about that a lot. Man's Search for Meaning. So.
Oh yeah, and there was no way I could have considered professional help. I mean, I went to a high school where they had a class in coping with divorce. That was my, I think it was $25, and that was my big splurge.
Your big splurge, but at the same time,
semester.
I think you probably most people that are going through really, really tough times will spend some time doing they'll look at what other people are doing. And either decide that they're going to copy them and do that, because you typically would get the same result, or say, oh, well, I'm not doing that, and make sure that you stay away from the warnings, if you will.
Oh, I think I read every book in the library on divorce.
So that's where you got, that's, yeah. So that's getting some help. That is, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us some more about, as far as the Sex Happens book and how that translated to, because Gracie's Gone is a very different book.
Very different, yes. Gracie's Gone. Have you ever been in a store and you have a little child, and suddenly you can't find your child?
Our daughter did that, and I think every mother has experienced this. You're in the shopping mall, and the kid decides to hide inside the clothes rack. Oh my gosh, heart drop.
Oh yeah, the panic. So what I decided to do was to take that emotion, and I'm not saying play on it in any way, negative way, but take that emotion and take the reader into the home and the hearts of the family when their 6-year-old Gracie is gone.
Yes. And for our readers, I do want to share this, because one of my first reactions when I got the book, and I just want to clarify, I'm not going to be a spoiler on this.
No.
But I think it's very important for people to know that nothing happens to the little girl, because I couldn't handle that, to be honest with you.
Well, I couldn't either. And I remember reading, Alice Sebold's book. I'm blanking the name now, but you're in the child has been molested and then killed, and you're in her mind after. Lovely Bones. There's no way, and it was a wonderful read, but there's no way I wanted to play on that emotion. I wanted to get you to feel what it would feel like. And then we collected $1,000 for child rescue from the sales.
Yeah, and explain what child rescue is. And I know there's a connection with your son.
My son is on the board. It is an organization that goes in and rescues and rehabilitates trafficked children. Now, while the little girl in Gracie's Gone was not trafficked, I mean, nothing. You'll never figure out who took her, but nothing happens to her was something I had to,
had to have in there.
Yeah, it because there was no way. And how pervasive it is that children are taken or are, by family members, by whatever. And I wanted people to relate to that and then, see what it's like. And my husband and I were talking how our kids used to play outside.
Yeah, we played outside. I mean, we didn't have cell phones. I remember my mom and dad both, they'd just say, come back at dinner time.
Exactly.
Which meant dark. And I remember in the summer, we would play hide and seek with groups of neighborhood kids. But there was one thing that they did, which was actually a pretty cool thing when I was growing up. I grew up in Phoenix, and they had, we pretty much all walked or rode our bikes to school, but we had this big E. So picture an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with this biggest red letter E that you could possibly imagine. And that would be put in the front window of somebody that was vetted by the school. And this was throughout the whole school district. It wasn't just ours, but it was vetted by the school. And that was a signal that was a safe place. Now, we were told it was a safe place, not because of some of the horrors that we know about now, but more from a standpoint of if you fall off your bike, Mary is home after school, and you can go to Mrs. Rogers' house and she'll be there to take care of you. That was, and more than once, kids needed it. They fell off their bike, skinned their knees. They'd go to the closest house that had that giant letter E.
Wow.
It was great, but, I don't know what, I've never seen it duplicated. I've never even
heard of it.
Oh, it was a great program, whoever came up with it. And one time my brother, there was a really fun ditch that we would ride our bikes through. So I went through the lower side because I was not as much of a daredevil as my brother was. And, I was a gymnast, but I was also really little. But my brother loved to ride bikes. Like he was probably may have been a freshman in high school, and he actually rode a bike from Phoenix all the way to Prescott and back with just another friend, camping along the side of the roads. I mean,
that
doesn't happen now.
Right.
But but one of the times that he went through the big ditch, and there had been some water previously, and so the terrain was different, and he went head over heels and split his chin open, knocked himself out, the whole 9 yards. It's one of the ladies from the E houses, the safe house, came and, basically put a washcloth on it. And then I ran home and got Mom, and off we went to the hospital. So had quite a few stitches. But Gracie's Gone. And one thing that I think is great, I look at the cover and I know that that's one of your granddaughters. Her photo had her be the model. Right? It was, yeah.
Well, yeah, and that was the impetus for the children's book, because my other granddaughter, another one, said to me, "Well, I would like to be on a cover," and I said to her, "Okay, if you want to be on a cover, you got to write a book." And with her, Aria, it was a game on. She was ready. She said, "All right, let's go."
That's fabulous.
That's how we
wrote.
And
when is that coming out? That book is not out yet.
No, Kindle. They can pre-order Kindle.
Pre-order on Kindle.
And it already became a #1 bestseller on Kindle. And I know, and it won't even be out till early April, in time for Easter.
In time
the
for
hardcover.
Easter. That is really
Because
exciting.
we have a hardcover, and that'll be out.
That is super exciting. So a little bit more about Gracie's Gone. So in terms of, you've had quite a bit of success with it, and it may become a movie.
Yes, we're working on the screenplay right now.
Very good. Very, very good. And I mean, that in and itself, that's a huge, huge arduous task. Lots going on.
Well, I'm not writing the screenplay.
But I'm saying the
editing
process.
and helping.
Yeah, you got to edit. One thing that I know, make sure you hang on to that editorial control, because they may choose to do something else to Gracie. Just saying. You got to make sure.
Well, I really don't have that control. An agent has picked it up, and it's out of my hands. I mean, there's been no money exchange because she gets a percentage of placement, but no, it's not in my hands.
Oh boy! So you'll have to let us know.
I'll let you know.
So in terms of there's a couple of things I really so big history. You've done a lot of things, and a couple of key takeaways. I think that sometimes people just decide that they're going to do A, and they never add B. Like they never add anything else. Like, oh, I am pick whatever profession. I am a doctor. I obviously cannot write a book, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Tell me a little bit more about some of the things that you would have listeners do, like some of the lessons that you've learned from starting your own business, from writing a book, from, how do you negotiate with an agent? How do you make decisions? I'm throwing a lot out there, but I would love to have.
In one word, right?
Yes, in one word. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, of all the things that I've done, the most gratifying is writing the children's book, The Surprise Circus.
Really?
Yes. Nothing even holds a candle to it. To be able to take a message to children, a message that you've got to be hungry and you've got to believe in yourself. And then magical things will happen, even a surprise circus. And that's being able to instill values in a child is what every parent wants. And what better way than with a bedtime story?
Oh, yeah.
So of everything, I look at this children's book really as the culmination of, and by the way, there are 4 more.
Oh?
In the hopper, because Aria is moving.
Now, may I ask how old Aria is?
Yes. When she started her writing career, now she, of course, was a true storyteller, because we played with the idea. Well, what should we write about? What's the most fantastic thing? A circus. So we started writing. And the circus people, each one is sent to her house, like the fire eater, and he burns down the curtains, and the juggler, and he throws her baby up in the air. And and whatever was in our minds, or my mind, the illustrator, who by the way is 15, was able to put it to paper in the style of Andy Warhol. That's what we wanted.
Wow.
So what a collaboration. I mean, a 5-year-old, well, now she's 6.
So Aria is now a whopping 6 years old.
She's 6. She's moved. She's past this 5-year-old stuff. And she's 6, and the illustrator is 15. And I'm a little bit older than they are. And I've passed 70. I'll tell you that. I'll share that. And this is the most gratifying thing I've ever done.
That is really awesome. And as far as the information, so the gift that we have as far as books, I just read a very, very interesting statistic that that library use. Remember, they said that it was going to be over with and done. Library use is up this past year. More people are spending time at the library than, not just compared to other libraries, but compared to watching television as far as the time frame. It's really interesting.
Well, to put a damper on that, a lot of libraries do have books on tape and
they have books on tape and things like that, but we're talking about physically going to the library and spending that time. And one of the things I think is really neat to see, we have them all over Tucson called Books on the Corner. So there's just this little house, give a book, take a book. Got that happening at a lot of churches. You've got it at several coffee houses here in town. And it's really cool. And so some people that have written, I know several authors, they've written books. They'll just drive around town and they'll find one of the little book things and they'll just put some of their books in there.
Okay, that's what I got to do then before I return my my rental car.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing, and yeah, well, the good excuse. You can go to Crossroads Coffee. They have a give a book, get a book that's over on the east side of town. They have kind of a neat, it's a coffee house, but I really like that. I've met other, meet other business people there, and it's quiet inside. Some of the coffee houses are so loud I can't hear myself think. So
that's encouraging because what did I read? Pew research that 70% of college educated people read only one book a year.
That to me is shocking. That's shocking. Well, you're part of a book club. You're in a book club.
Oh, no.
I'm saying that. That's for Pew research. But I'm saying as far as people, this is a key thing for people to understand.
Yes.
The top people that are doing the most, there's a very large link. There was another big statistic that Jim Rohn did years ago. The people that earned over $250,000 a year, every single one of them had a huge library. Those that earned less tended to have very few books in their home. A very interesting statistic.
Yes, and they said CEOs do skew that statistic because they read about a book a week.
A book a week, yeah. We're almost at the end of our show, but I wanted to ask you one quick question.
Sure.
Do you read different books depending upon the mood you're in? Like, how many books do you have going right now? Like, if I were to look at your list of books, how many do you have going right now? Do you read one at a time yourself? Do you read multiples?
Actually, our RV, the first thing we did, the whole shelf above the bed is only books.
Oh, that's
so we read about sometimes 2 a week. But my medical legal practice, 2 weeks ago, I had 9,000 pages of medical records to review.
See?
So that takes me away. But what I try to read are bestsellers. And I've really tried to read mostly bestsellers written by women. And I have managed to read almost every bestseller. So that's what I really try to read, and one at a time.
So that's interesting. So for me personally, I have books kind of like everywhere. I've got them on my nightstand. I've got them everywhere. And depending upon what I'm in. Now, I tend to gravitate towards book that talks about high growth and development. I'm rereading Atomic Habits by James Clear. So it's a lot of fun as far as that. So, well, we are at the end of our hour. And so they can get any of the 3 books on Amazon?
Well, they can get the Surprise Circus on Kindle until April for Easter.
April for Easter to purchase the book. Right. But then go to Kindle. Okay.
They can go to Kindle. It's only 99 cents now. The Surprise Circus and the other books are available on Amazon, and they were bestsellers.
It's really exciting to have as far as that being a bestsellers. And then was it just that when you got that bestsellers, how did that feel when you realized, oh my gosh, I just wrote a book that's become a bestseller?
I have to say that was very exciting. And not to be redundant, when I looked and saw that this Surprise Circus was a #1 new release, it was like, oh my goodness, that was over the top.
That is super exciting.
Wonderful.
So the best way for people to connect with you is, our listeners, if they want to connect with you, is what, LinkedIn? How do you like to be connected with?
I have an email.
Okay.
And it's drcarolsoloway@gmail.com. Or I do have a website for my speaking, because we go across the country speaking. not we, I, and my husband drives the RV.
Well, that's a we. That's a we.
And that's www.carolsoloway.
And Soloway. We've got some of those.
S-O-L-O.
S-O-L-O. Soloway is the easiest way to say it. And then if you would like to find out on me personally, if you would like a mortgage review, right now, interest rates, this is crazy. Interest rates are the lowest that they've been in 3.5 years. And
wow.
It's a really good time to do a mortgage review. Everyone should do an annual mortgage review. Take a peek at your insurance. If property values have gone up, you need to check with your insurance agent. Are you properly insured? Many people that had cabins on Mount Lemmon, they didn't have enough insurance. Their homes were not able to be rebuilt when we had that devastating fire a long time ago now, decade plus. And also look at the vesting on your title. I've got people that have found a trust. They haven't put their homes in the trust, or they took title they've owned their home for a long time and they took title as joint tenants with rights of survivorship when we actually have the ability to hold property as community property with rights of survivorship in the state of Arizona. So if you want to have a mortgage review, which is looking at some of those information, and many of my clients are able to get rid of mortgage insurance right now because the values are up. And their payments are dropping. I mean, my clients are dropping $400, $500, $600 a month with a lot of their payments right now. And to reach me, the best way is to call me at the office, which is 520-447-2279. Again, that's 520-447-2279. Carol, Dr. Soloway, thank you so much for being our guest. It is you are a bright, shining light. And I love how you lift everybody else up.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.